Arjun is in a miserable position. That is not the position of Arjun, the person. That is the situation of entire mankind. That is the conflict that we all face daily, every day. So, first of all, it is not about Arjun and Krishna. It is not about two persons. Arjun and Krishna are both within us. Krishna is not standing in front of Arjun. Krishna is the heart of Arjun.
Good evening, sir. One of the major problems we all face is our identity crisis. In today's generation, this problem is with most of us, and especially it plagues us. So, how to deal with this? Can you give some advice on this?
See, we live in a world where it is possible, rather, it becomes necessary to choose from amongst various available identities, and also sometimes wear multiple identities at once. Now, which identity to choose? Choose identities that afford you the maximum freedom. That is the only criteria. Right? You could, for example, in a given situation, be a daughter, a student, an Indian, a seeker, a girlfriend, a student. There are so many identities possible to you. How do you know whether or not an identity is good for you? If an identity confines you, constrains you, prevents you from learning and growing up, that identity is not good for you. If someone says you should clip your wings because, let's say you are my daughter or my wife, then the identity of daughter or wife is not good for you. Because an identity is not the final or ultimate thing in itself. Finally, it is about your growth. We are born ignorant beings, and life has to be a journey in learning. Ever seen how ignorant, how confined, and how animalistic a newborn baby is? Very similar to an animal. And you have to grow up. You have to rise as a consciousness. Before you die, you have to raise your mind and life to the highest level possible. Therefore, the identities that you choose must facilitate your rise through life. If you remember this, it will be very easy to discard the wrong identities. The wrong identities will always want to limit you. Do not do this, do not go there, do not learn that, do not be exposed to that, because you have identity X. The moment you hear this, an alarm should go off. Ultimately, those who have known have taught us that you should be free from all identities. But that's a far cry. It takes a while to reach there when you are free from all identities. given your age, your station in life, you will find the compulsion to carry one identity or the other. Then this is the way to choose. The moment an identity becomes an obstacle in your inner growth, you should immediately realize that it is a bad omen. That identity is in fact a cage, discard it. And any identity that makes you strive to become better. For example, when you become a student, what does the identity of being a student necessitate? Let's say you're a student now and you have an I card, an identity card, right? You are a student. You are identifying as a student. Now, what will become compulsory for you? Learning, attending classes, making notes, gaining exposure, having an internship. Now, this identity, it appears is good for you, because by carrying the identity of a student, you are being made to grow internally. So, this identity is good. This identity is good. Are you getting it? Similarly, any identity that helps you evade responsibility is not good for you. For example, if you use the identity of the student to say, oh, I am just a student, therefore I am not supposed to be very responsible, then this identity is not good for you. And many a times you will feel tempted to do this. But I am just a student, you know. The thing is, you might be a student, but you are also 20 or 25 years old. And that's a lot of years. You ought to be responsible. So that's how one chooses her identity. See what that identity is doing to you. It's a very delicate matter, attaching any identity to your name. Because with identities come responsibilities and also constraints. You must know very well which responsibilities to take, what kind of constraints to avoid. Do not just very quickly become somebody. Do not just very quickly take on an identity. It can become a lifelong bondage. And there are many such identities, right? Once you take those identities upon yourself, they become pretty much irreversible. What will you do now? And having that identity has certain implications. Even the court will ask you, if you do not want to bear these responsibilities, why did you first of all accept that identity? Are you getting it? So be very careful. Be very careful and keep asking yourself, am I becoming more free? Am I learning? Is my mind becoming clearer? Am I growing in compassion? Am I becoming more responsible? Those identities that facilitate this growth within you are good for you. Those identities that do the opposite must be dropped or avoided.
Thank you so much, respected Acharya ji, for the valuable insight. He tells us about Vedanta, whether you are be or not. How will you make the decisions? And the decisions also depend upon the importance you give to the particular things. Acharya ji also talks about the spiritual bankruptcy, how people went bankrupt because they don't know where to spend and unwise decisions and not being spirituals in the decisions. To succeed in life, aware which things needs to be accepted and which things to be discarded. With all these words, now I invite Professor Nidhi Srivastava to propose a vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening to our most valuable Honorable Chief Guest Acharya Prashant ji. Director GLB IMR Dr. Sapna Rakesh. I, Dr. Nidhi Srivastava, on behalf of GL Bajaj Institute of Management and Research family, thank the Almighty to allow us to be the medium for organizing the enlightening session for benefit of all. I would like to thank our chief guest of the day, Acharya Ji, and his team for his words of wisdom that radiated a source of energy within us. We will ever remain grateful to you, sir, and we thank you for being with us today. Thank you all.